let's start a little bit with what is an office hours. So if you are in any way familiar with universities or like more free format courses, there are office hours where you go to an expert, often a teacher, and you ask them questions. I am by no means the Logseq expert. I am just the community manager, but there are a lot of community leaders here. And through these sessions, we try to get an overview of what are the main challenges from people within the community, see how we can improve the product, but also give you just answers. And what I like the most personally is when you bring a very specific question, like when you say, I have this query, I've asked in the Discord or on the forum how to get this working and it's still not working. That is very valuable feedback for us as a team, as a product, creating the product, but then also for the community to see what can we build to address different use cases. So this is really a network event almost, even though I will be doing most of the talking. Let me zoom in a little bit. And from the people who filled in the survey when you registered for this event, there were a few interesting numbers. From what I see is that these types of events are mostly for people who have been using Logseq for just a few months. So 3 people who filled it out have been using Logseq for less than a month. People between 1 and 6 months, total 14, and then just a handful of people who are hopefully here today and hopefully will be able to also answer some stuff in the chat, have been using Logseq for more than 6 months. And you can see it also in the questions that are asked or the challenges that are experienced. And for me, just off the cuff, one of the main indications for me after seeing what you filled in is that we need to improve onboarding a little bit, because the way Logseq works is different from most other note-taking tools. Unless you come from maybe Dynalist or Workflowy or Roam Research, Logseq might not click immediately. So in this session, I will be linking to a lot of existing resources that as a newcomer may not be aware of. Sorry for the people who are already really familiar with Logseq. There will probably be a lot of repetition. So again, this is being recorded, so always feel free to come back at a later time once I've added all the timestamps, and you can just quickly go through basically the topics. And I have organized this office hours by basically main challenges. So sometimes I get very specific questions. I love to do those, but basically in an office hours, you can only do maybe 1 query troubleshooting, or maybe 2 little workflow demos. Whereas with challenges, I can link to existing resources that you may not be aware of yet. All right, let's see. I want to go into the comments for a little bit and see if there are some questions. So let's see if this works. Phoenix is asking, can you share this page later so I can see how you did the formatting? Yes, my plan is to make this a public graph. So I'm setting up a public graph with some resources that I will be adding to over time. Let's see, and just to show you the power of Logseq and it being a markdown based editor, is you see this little table that I created using an online website called, I think, a Markdown Table Generator. So it looks a little bit messy, but it just generates it for you. You can copy paste it, and then I click outside of it, and it's rendered as a table. So this is a little bit of a hidden feature, I would say. So it's not an image, it's an actual table. All right. So the main challenges, and I've organized them a little bit by how often I see these challenges mentioned. So we'll have a look at queries and organizing results, syncing graphs between devices, lacking documentation. I definitely agree with that. Exporting pages, how to get an overview of projects and tasks. So more specific, but it's linked to queries and organizing results. Also related to finding, using past notes are queries as well. Publishing public graphs, there are now a few solutions. Highlighting, keyboard navigation, and again, queries and templates. So there's the theme, queries and templates. For many problems, I would say, that many people encounter using Logseq, it's often not knowing how to structure notes and how to then retrieve them. So there are a few ways you can retrieve notes, obviously linked references at the bottom of a page, but also you can actually link to different pages and then create a query. So basically it's a code-based way of searching. So that intimidates many people. And that is also one of the reasons why we are organizing a learning sprint. So I'm going to put this in the chat, and I think I can put it in the chat in YouTube. That works. So have a look at this blog post. I am obviously not in this hour going to be able to go into queries. We have to dedicate a few weeks to it. So this might feel like a lot. Maybe you think, I don't want to spend 3 weeks learning about queries. I just want to spend an afternoon. That is great. Wait until the learning sprint is over. And then our goal is to distill the best resources to learn about how Logseq works under the hood, how you should link and structure your notes, how you can then retrieve them using simple queries, so the built-in query language, and then also data log, which is way more advanced queries. And probably you will not need it, but it's a really nice way to get a very deep understanding of how Logseq works. And I think that is also one of the things I want to really emphasize, is that Logseq can do a lot, but it's an outliner first and foremost. So for example, there were also questions about how can I format Logseq and then in a way that I can export business documents with a header and everything. And I'm thinking, that is not how you should use Logseq. It's an outliner first and foremost, and then up until a point, your workflow will work beautifully in Logseq, but at some point you will need to export it maybe to another tool, and that is fine. But I think it's very difficult, or very easy, to step in the trap of wanting to use a tool for everything. And maybe someday Logseq will be able to do everything, but we are much more thinking about how can we support the ecosystem of Markdown-based editors? How can we make data interoperability better within Logseq so that it's easier to use with other tools? But anyway, I'm digressing. If you want to learn more about queries and how Logseq works under the hood and what it means that Logseq is an outliner first and foremost, and that you should structure your notes in an outline structure, then really I recommend you look at the summer sprint. All right. Let me take a sip of water, because we're getting into something that many people will have run into, and that is syncing between devices. This week we released version 0.7.6, which should really help with some data synchronization conflicts, mostly on Dropbox and iCloud. And this is a little bit out of our control, because the way Logseq works, basically, if you want a little bit of a technical understanding, but Logseq works on a top of a database. So there's a database that then creates Markdown files, but sometimes in this creation of the Markdown file, so from the database to the Markdown file, there might be a conflict on the sync service. So sorry if I'm getting too technical, but that can cause some issues on, for example, iCloud, when iCloud sees two of the same files or two files with the same name, what does it then do? It duplicates pages. And then Logseq gets confused, what is the right page? So we're working on our own sync service that should take away a lot of these issues. We're very close to launching it. I know I've been saying this for quite a while, but now we're internally testing it. We are smoothing things out. We're also taking real life use cases into consideration. For example, what if you have been using iCloud all this time? There are a lot of duplicate files. How will we then be able to find the right files? We're figuring that out. So there are a lot of little challenges that are thrown our way as we have to take all the different user configurations into consideration. But we're testing it right now. So if you want to become a sponsor or a backer, you can do that via Open Collective. And you can already, I think, start with $1 a month. And this will be for a few weeks to a few months that will be running with a closed beta with our backers and sponsors. All right, let's go to the next challenge. And I've also recognized this when I joined Logseq in December of last year. The current community seems to be very much a more adventurous tech/hacky type. So someone who feels very comfortable with a lack of documentation and finding out how a tool works through trial and error. But now more and more, less technical users or non-coders are discovering Logseq, and they maybe don't want to spend all this time figuring out themselves how to use this tool. So we definitely have a lot of work to do to improve documentation. There are a few efforts that we're already undertaking. So if you don't know it yet, there is the Community Hub that is very useful. If you want to contribute to it, please send me a DM in the Discord or on the forum. Just search for Ramses, and then you will be able to contribute content, either your own content or help curate content, so that more workflows are being shared. So that is one thing that we're doing based on community efforts. And then another thing that we're doing based on community efforts is maintaining and rewriting our documentation. So that is being done on the forum. Definitely have a look if you have any experience with Logseq and or writing documentation. We really need your help. So please have a look also at how you could contribute. So some people might be more fans of creating tutorials, others just want to write reference guides, or maybe you want to write a philosophical piece about the opportunities of the outline structure. It's all fine. Here are some instructions how you can contribute. So I've also put that in the chat. All right. We are continuing with something I addressed at the beginning, and that is exporting pages as professional business documents. To be honest, I've definitely stepped in this trap of wanting to do everything with one tool once I discovered that tool. So in my case, I discovered Logseq and I thought, wow, I can do everything in this, because most of my knowledge work is text-based. So I'm not a designer. I work with ideas. I give feedback on stuff. And for that, an outline structure is awesome. But obviously, at some point, you have to export things, and then you might run into some issues. So one of the things that we're very unapologetic about is that we are an outlining tool. So we might look at some ways to streamline how text is formatted to give you some more control. But we're an outliner. Don't expect Logseq to someday become more like Obsidian, where you have pages. It's a completely different way of thinking. So if you don't like that, look for parts of your workflow that would work best with an outliner. And maybe Obsidian or some other tool is better for you because you don't need block references or queries. You just want to write linear documents, and your notes that you keep are very simple. Don't complicate things, because it's very easy to complicate things. But even if you think, well, there's just part of my workflow that I want to do in Logseq, for example, up until an outline, and then I want to use some other plain text editor like Obsidian or Notepad++ or VS Code, whatever you want to use, you can use it just by opening the source file. So again, Logseq writes everything to Markdown files, and that is how you can use your data. So it's very open. Like the data format is very easy to work with. And hopefully in the future, there will also be more open source tools that can work with the metadata that Logseq gives to blocks as you work with them. For example, block references. Another challenge is getting an overview of projects and tasks. Very simple answer. Look at or consider joining the learning sprint. And it starts next Monday. The first live session will be next Wednesday. I've already linked to it in the chat. So definitely have a look at that. Same basically for finding and using past notes. And I've already created some content in the past. So the previous office hours was about building processes with queries. So I'm going to put this link in the chat as well. So here I built a few workflows live, and then this is a workflow that I use every week to write the Curated Logseq newsletter. So again, my process functions on queries. If you look at the last newsletter that was sent yesterday, so on blog.logseq.com, I have linked to a few tools, InfoNotice, and that we'll get to it in a little bit, I think, and an overview by Brian Sunter, where you can see what are some of the AI tools that are out there to basically help you find patterns in your graph. So if you have a lot of notes in your graph that are not linked, that are not properly indented, maybe you can use a tool like InfoNotice or some of the other tools that run on GPT-3 to find patterns in your graph and then structure it yourself based on that information. So this is still a very new terrain also for me. It's just getting started, but it's a very exciting development in the Logseq community, I think. All right, and then also learn everything about block references and block embeds, because again, Logseq is an outliner, and if you know how to create outlines based on other blocks, you're saving yourself a lot of typing. I see that didn't go well copying, so I'll do that one by one. Also a good comment by JP, I will drag it in. So the context menu makes it easy to open a project Markdown file in VS Code. And then he says, or she says, the context menu doesn't seem to be available in the journal pages. Actually, it is, but if I go to the journals pages and I click on the date, you will not see any context menu that says copy as. But if I click into the page, then it should be, well, then it says export page. So it doesn't say copy as, but export page. And then let's zoom out a little bit. Then you can actually do the same as you do export as. So for example, you can say, I want to remove, like I want no indentation, and then you get everything on the same level. You can do copy to clipboard and copy it basically over into any other Markdown tool. To be honest, this could use some better features, if you ask me. And I've already addressed it within the team. What I would like to see, for example, and hopefully that will be added soon, is when you say, I want to remove the dashes, that's fine and all, but I don't want everything to become one big paragraph. So I would like to see basically line breaks. I don't know if I can do that. No, I cannot do that in here, but I want line breaks basically in between the blocks, so that when I export it to maybe a blogging platform, it's properly rendered. Yeah, good comment, JP. Thank you. And keep them coming. I can just drag in comments. So if you have any tips or tricks, feel free to contribute. All right. Publishing pages or public graphs. There are two main efforts going on right now. So on the one hand, you have Logseq Publish, which is an official solution. It's not actively maintained right now, so we're thinking of giving this to the community. So we're thinking of sponsoring community programmers, so a monetary sponsorship where they can improve the current Logseq Publish service to make it easier. There's already some tutorials on how to export your graph and then upload it to Netlify, which is a free service. I definitely recommend you check out this how-to or this tutorial guide by Brian Sunter. And then there's also Aryan Sanhi, who is our intern this summer at Logseq, coming from the Logseq community, who created with one other community member, I'm blanking on his name, created a plugin to export your graph as a Hugo website. So if you know Hugo Site Builder, you can make beautiful static, so static meaning not dynamic, no content management service in the background. Your Logseq graph is basically how you manage your content, and then you can publish it as a very fast site, again using Netlify to the web, so that then your graph doesn't actually look like a graph, it looks like a blog, for example, or a magazine, any way you want it. Obviously, this requires some coding, so hopefully in the near future, we'll do another learning sprint about how to actually create themes. So create Logseq themes, but then also themes, for example, for Hugo. So that is something else that I have in mind. This is available in the marketplace, but I will put the link in the chat so you can see what is possible. JP is asking what is missing on the journal page is open with default app. I don't know what you mean, JP. If you can please elaborate on it in the chat, I would then love to go into it later. But for now, I'm just going to continue with this list. This is more like a roadmap that is going to come up. Then I will do, after we finish with this, I will do a short demo of the new Readwise integration, how it works, how I have set up my metadata, why that way, and then we'll do a quick sync and you can see for yourself how it works. What else? Yeah, and then hopefully there will be some more time for questions. So what is coming up for highlighting PDFs? So yeah, the PDF reader definitely can use some work if you ask me. For example, it's currently not possible to search PDFs. Another piece of feedback I got was that, for example, when you highlight something like text that spans several pages, it doesn't work flawlessly. Obviously, this is a limitation also in how certain PDFs are formatted. But from our side, we can definitely do a better job. Again, maybe we are going to consider branching out the PDF editor as a plugin. And then again, the way we want to branch out some of the functionality is by giving a grant or sponsorship to a community contributor to make current functionality into a plugin and then provide certain amount of lifetime support on that plugin. And then hopefully more and more community contributors can actually build on top of functionality that is crucial for many different groups, but that might not have our full attention because we are more focused on the core functionality that benefits all users. So for example, currently we're fully focused on stability, which impacts all users. We're focused on syncing, file sync, real-time collaboration. So that will impact way more users at once. And then for the functionality like the Zotero integration, the PDF reader, that might be useful for many of our users, of our community members, but that might not have that might not be useful for the majority. So we want to support more community creators building this, thinking about how things can be better, and then have almost like committees that work on different parts of functionality. And the same is basically also applicable to navigating Logseq using your keyboard. So if you know of a feature request, or if you can think of some feature that would help many people in the community, consider suggesting it. But even better, look first if there's already a proposal, because often there are really good proposals that are thought through, that have many comments and that already have many votes. And that is how we go and go into the community for feedback. So obviously we have these sessions, we have the Discord, but then the feature requests is what I believe one of the most important ways to see what is really living in the community, what is really being missed. So definitely have a look at the feature requests. And if you see an existing proposal, you think this proposal is good, but it's missing these pieces, like for example, the PDF reader, if you see a proposal for better PDF reading, you see search mentioned, but you don't see better highlight support for multiple pages mentioned, add that. So we can make it a collaborative effort. We can shape the feature set of Logseq together. All right, and then let's see, setting up templates in a way that they work well with queries. I've linked to this newsletter, to this session already. So how to write a curated newsletter with Logseq. And also during the learning sprint, we'll be looking at this. So how can you ensure that your queries will actually contain data that you want to see? And templates are a very important way to achieve this, because when you use templates, you create some consistent structure in your graph using links, using indentation, using properties. So definitely have a look at that session. All right. We're going to dive into the Readwise demo, because yesterday Readwise launched their official integration with Logseq. And let me take a sip of water and then I will walk you through everything. So in the off chance you are not familiar with Readwise, Readwise is a service, I would say an integration service, that helps you extract your highlights and notes from reading apps. So reading app could be the Kindle app or the Kindle physical machine, could be Instapaper, Pockets, Hypothesis, annotated PDFs, basically almost anything. So if I go to my dashboard and I go to import, you can see I have my Kindle connected, I have Twitter connected, I have Apple Books connected, I have Hypothesis connected and Air, but I can connect many other services. So if you don't know Readwise yet, and I think this is my link, you get 2 months, yeah. So it's readwise.io/Ramses. You get 2 months free of charge and you can test it, no credit card required. There are also ways you can import freeform. You can just drag your myclippings.txt file from your Kindle it's awesome. I love it. I've been using this for, I think, since the beginning. So what, like 4 years, I think, right now, maybe even longer. I have quite a few books and articles here. Let's see, 83 books, 442 articles, quite some tweets. And then what I do is I selectively export stuff to my graph. So I'm not going to show you my whole process of going through Readwise. We'll get to that in the near future. We're actually going to have either Tristan or Daniel on, who are the co-founders of Readwise, and then dive into how they use Readwise and how to decide what to export. So for now, we're just going to set up the integration. So if you're not really familiar with plugins, I will walk you through it. It's quite simple. So here in the top right, and I should move my face right. That should be better. So here in the top right, you have the 3 dots, and you have to go to, let's see, plugins. So this is the plugins overview. You land normally in all the plugins you have installed. There is a division between plugins and themes, as you can see here, and I have one theme installed. But in the marketplace, you can find new plugins. And if we look for Readwise, there was an unofficial plugin which works fine, but it doesn't have selective sync. I think it lacks custom metadata, and that is really what you want. So let's install the official Readwise plugin. I'm going to click install, and it's being installed. Let's see, it's installed now. And just to be sure, always refresh your graph when you install plugin. So I'm going to hit Command R on my laptop. If you're on Windows or Linux, it should be Control R. So let's see. I don't. Why is this not showing? Let's see. There is definitely something missing here, and that is the button that it should create. So let's see how we can do this. Sanhi, maybe you, I think you are in the chat. Maybe you can tell me where the plugins button went, or is it just my theme? Let's see. It's always dangerous to do live demos, but we'll get there. It's disabled. Oh, do I? Maybe I don't have developer mode enabled. Let me see. Advanced. I do have developer mode. There's a toggle. Yeah, there's a toggle. I know this was just revised, but I don't know. Plugin settings. Let's see. Yeah, but I don't see the Readwise one. Let's see. Maybe it has to do with the theme. No, it doesn't have to do with theme. This is very strange. Yeah, I will restart Logseq. And I see no toggle. So I cannot show it. Wait. Maybe I should enable it. Oh my goodness. All right, this is definitely going to get edited. So, lesson learned. And this is a change that I didn't pick up on. So, very important. When you install a plugin, don't be like me. So, by default, when you install a plugin, In the past, it used to be enabled automatically. Now it seems to not be enabled automatically. So make sure this toggle is turned blue. And then refresh Logseq just to be sure. Yeah. Thank you. I should have checked the chat so it wasn't toggled. So anyway, we're ready for the demo. I click this button here in the top, and you should be able to see my top right here. That should be visible. But as you can see here, you got a few options to sync. So you always need to initiate the sync. So this is when you do it for the first time. When you sync for the first time, you click Initiate Sync. And let's see. It's okay, please switch to that sync for the late. So I had it set up on a test. All right, I had it set up on a test. Yeah, so let's see. Initiate Sync. Syncing readwise data. So it's now pulling in stuff from readwise, but how do I actually select what I want to sync? So I click on Customize, and that will open up readwise for me. And this will look quite complicated, but this is I don't know if it's a markup language or it's like a scripting language called Jinja, so Jinja. Jinja, and it enables you to transform text. So in this case, you see that I have created a namespace. So every time I export something, I add a namespace. And how do I do that? I grab the category, I capitalize it, and then I remove the last letter, because otherwise it would show books. And I can show that actually. So if I wouldn't remove the last letter, it will show books. I want to have it singular. So I say book. It's that powerful. So definitely look into that. Then there is a lot of more cool stuff that you can add. So this is the page metadata. This will appear at the top of the page. I have it set to author, which I turn into a link. I have the full title, and I want to make sure that when there are commas in the title, it doesn't turn it into links. So I will put this between quotes. Then the type, again, I make it book. And why do I add this? Because then I can show it in a query table. I have the source. So here it even has conditional. So if there's a URL available, then it will include this metadata. If there are document texts available, it will include them. What else? Then there's the highlights header. And then I have something cool set up for my highlights. So I want to combine my notes and my highlights together, and I want to have them linked. And I want to be able to quickly find back stuff that I wrote. So when I tag something as notes, those are my words. So I do that in a few ways. I have this greater than sign. Maybe I should just make this page bigger. So I have this greater than sign, which indicates this is a quote. This is a block quote. Then underneath, I have, if there is a note for the highlight, I add hashtag notes, I add the highlight note, and I even add the tags, as you can see here. So let's do a sync from readwise. So I just do it again. Oh, wait, and I forgot to show one thing, because what is it syncing? It's syncing everything that I have selected here. So let's see, is there anything else I want to sync right now? For example, this is an article. So now when I click Initiate Sync, syncing the readwise data, And then let's see if I see in all pages, this article turned up. It has the metadata, the author. It has the full title in between quotes, because if there's a comma in here, I wanted to show just the title, not turn it into links or anything. It's an article and it has the source. And as you can see here, I have the highlights tagged as highlight. I have the highlight indicated as a quote. And then underneath, I have my notes. So that is basically how I use Readwise. In the future, I will go way more into how I do this. But for now, let's jump into some questions that you have. I'm going to look for question. So Stan is asking, I'm just going to show this. Stan is asking, can you spend a few minutes on page properties? Yeah, I can. So we can actually use these properties as an example. So properties are a big topic. We'll get very deep into them during the learning sprint this summer. I'm just going to link to some documentation, which is still here. It should go to the forum soon, but let me look it up. It's in queries and then properties. Yeah. So you have properties here. This is a example of a property query. So you can look for type book, and actually I have that. So I have a type article in this case. So let's say I want to write a query, and let's open these two. So we'll have here, let's make it a little bit smaller. And we have this metadata. So we have here type book and here type article. So let's say I want to write a query that finds all properties type book. So I click out of it and it shows me the only the pages that are of the type book. So it doesn't show this page, even though it has the metadata type, but this is set to article. So if I would change this to article, we would see this one. Why are properties useful? Well, properties are useful because you can turn them into tables. So let me see. Let's remove this. So here I have a table. So if I would have more entries, each entry would be, or each page would be one row. I have the page here with all the metadata showing up in the table. With CSS and advanced queries, you can do a lot more stuff with properties. Too much to go into right now, but that is basically why you will want to use some properties as page metadata. Very good question, Stan. Thank you. So we'll remove the question. And Mike is asking, are these the default settings? Do we need to add all this text you're showing to our Readwise settings? So I will show you what is default, because we can actually reset everything and then you'll be able to see how it looks out of the box. So let me go back to screen sharing, go back to the metadata up top. And I think I have very few things, really modified. So I think what I've modified is the type. So in the standard metadata, this is category. Obviously, I have it capitalized because I'm a perfectionist. I want things to look properly. I have the source, and I think in the standard, this is called URL, but I will copy it and just see what it will look like. So I click reset. And as you see, source has become URL, category, type has become category. But I prefer this. And then for the actual highlight, so with the block quote and the notes, this is very customized. So I don't know if I put this in the chat, if it will look any way decent. I'm just going to try. Yeah, I cannot copy this in the chat, I see. So if you want to use this, so if you want your highlights and notes to look like this, please take a screenshot now, or look this recording back later. Perfect. Okay, we have 10 more minutes. Let's see what other questions there are. And Jay says that these quotation marks are now added in the default. So let's check. Oh, that is wrong. Let's check. Reset. You are right, Jay. Jay, you are the true Readwise power user, I think, among us. All right. Yes. So those quotation marks here are added by default right now. Perfect. What else? Other questions. Let's remove this one. So Phoenix is asking, when do you think it's good/useful to put things like article in the title of a page? So the reason why I do it is because I'm a notes hoarder. I collect too many notes. And for example, I started to run into the issue that in this case, we looked at how to take smart notes as an example on Readwise. I had an article, how to take smart notes. I had a podcast, how to take smart notes. Obviously the book, how to take smart notes, a video. And before I was using the system already in Roam Research, even though Roam Research doesn't have the page properties like Logseq has, I was already adding the namespaces because that is something it does have in a simplified form to just stay sane, to see, okay, I want to go to the book, how to take smart notes. When I search for it in the search bar, I want to see the book. So I want to see it in the title. And that is the main reason. So once you start to see that you have duplicate content or like content with the same titles, it pays to use namespaces. If you're just an organization freak like me, then just get started with this immediately. I definitely recommend it if you like to have some structure in your graph. Pankaj is asking, can we export this to a web page? Yes, I have linked to it before. So if you go back in the chat, I have linked to, and actually I'm just going to link to it again, to a blog post, or newsletter, that I sent yesterday that contains some links about how to publish a graph to the web. So that is quite easy to do. Good questions about, let's see, about syncing. So pricing for future syncing. What about future price for syncing? We don't know yet. So for now, if you are a sponsor/backer, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to give every sponsor and backer a year access to the sync functionality, or longer or shorter. We still have to figure it out. Obviously, we're talking to people who know way more about this. We are a free and open source project, so us launching pro services will not impact the app in any way. So just please rest assured you will always be able to use Logseq for free, no matter how much the sync service will cost. There are already really good community solutions that are free, for example, using GitHub. There is also very good integration now possible using SyncThings, so you don't rely on any server, it's just peer-to-peer. That is for the more paranoid among us. And then obviously the Logseq sync will also be for the more paranoid among us because it will be fully encrypted. So if you don't want to trust your notes to GitHub or some other Git-powered platform, definitely wait for the Logseq sync. Good question. Let's see. And another question from Dmitro. Are there plans to add search inside a table view of a query? So queries, building queries, interacting with queries is something that really needs some work. So again, like what I said earlier in this office hours, we are considering giving like sponsorships to community members who are either building functionality that will fit directly within Logseq or that create plugins that make it easier to create queries and work with them. So if you ask, is it on our roadmap currently, then the answer is no, because we are focused on sync, real-time collaboration, and yeah, the people who use queries, hopefully it will become more and more. So it will become basically a standard in the user base. Then definitely we can consider bringing some functionality back in. But if you're a coder, if you have an idea for better query possibilities and you want to dedicate some serious time to it, by all means, please send me a DM because we want to sponsor the community. Let's see. What else? This is a question about Readwise. Michelle, in Readwise, after you create some new highlights, for example, will the plugin create a new page every time sync happens, or will the previous page be modified? So the previous page will be modified. It will just add the highlights and notes, new highlights and notes to the existing page. You can actually set a header for new highlights and notes. So you can actually link, for example, to today's date. You say today, these new highlights were synced, and then you will see on your journals page exactly what new highlights were synced. And let me go back to sharing, because what you can do is actually you can say every time Logseq opens, sync automatically. So you can definitely do that. And then in here, you have the highlights header. Let's see, you have, for example, sync notification. You can edit this any way you like. So, and as you can see here, I have the date set that it will create a link to the date that it's synced. So I can see on my journals page what new highlights were synced that day. All right. We're coming up on time. Let's see some other questions. Estrad, can you please elaborate on this question? So how robust is the encryption in Logseq now? Do you mean the built-in encryption that we have now, or are you talking about sync in the future, or how it sits on your file system? Like, can you specify it a little bit? And then, yeah, maybe if there's time, I can still answer it. Then Skylar, good question. Can you make sure these links in the description are in the description when this video is posted? Absolutely, I will do that. And then Eden Nilsson is asking, do you have a plan to improve the system of flashcards? If you have a suggestion, I know there is a topic on the forum, like in the feature requests, there is actually already a topic about this. So if you think, if you know of some specific way that we could improve flashcards, by all means, please put it in the chat. And this is something actually that should be a core feature of Logseq, and that we want to keep a core feature of Logseq, and that is flashcards, because then you can use it on mobile. Currently, mobile plugins don't work, unfortunately. But then also, we really want to make Logseq a tool for learning. So this is an example where we want, maybe not everyone is using it, but we really think that the majority of our users would benefit from using flashcards. Let's see. And again, a question by JP about queries. So how about a query debugger that lets you see the results of the query step by step? So this is one of these ideas that would be great for a plugin, because currently we really don't have the development bandwidth to build this ourselves. So I think this is a great idea. I think for many programmers, this would be very logical. I think it would be a great learning tool. So this is a great example of something that we would love to sponsor, that we cannot build ourselves right now. But if a group of community members band together, form basically a small temporary collective, we are happy to support the individuals financially and reward them for their time. All right, we are coming up on the top of the hour. So if you have any questions on Discord, my username is Ramses. On the forum, my username is Ramses. You can also send me an email, ramses@logseq.com. I will put it in the chat, and I will make sure in the edit will be in the screen. And what else? I think, yeah, there is a lot we can improve, but there are already a lot of workarounds. So these office hours, I really want to keep organizing as much as possible. But often we end up talking more about the roadmap of Logseq. So I'm not sure how much I will do these on YouTube. If you do want to attend live sessions that show off basically workflows, how to actually do things in Logseq, I definitely recommend you sign up for the learning sprint, because next week, Wednesday, it starts 1 hour earlier than this session started. I will run a session about how I use Logseq to learn. So I use Logseq as a learn log, as I watch content that I want to get to at some point. So basically building a personal wiki. I have a very simple process using tags and queries to review my notes and to actually remember them using flashcards. So that is something I will do next week. The week after, we will have Bas Scholleman, who is known as Tools on Tech on Twitter and YouTube. He'll be on to talk about simple queries. And the week after, we will have one of our community moderators, Alex, on. And we will be talking about advanced queries and data log. And in between, there will be a lot of activity on the forum. I will be opening the private forum, well, it's not a private forum, but dedicated forum for the learning sprint. And then all the content that is useful there, once the learning sprint is done, I will put it in all the right categories. I will add the correct metadata, so it will be very easy to find how-to guides, questions to common, answers to common questions about queries in the forum. So that is basically one of the goals of the learning sprint, is to collect an index of useful resources, but also actual examples of query code, of common stumbling blocks, that we hopefully at some point we can really streamline this part of the onboarding to make it easier for people to learn about queries. But at this moment, it's very messy. I'm also figuring out how people actually learn about queries without also becoming a coder, because that is what many people think. If you learn about queries, you have to be a coder. I don't think that is the case. I think that if you learn about queries, that you will become more proficient in general using computers and the internet, because a lot of queries is based on Boolean logic. And once you understand Boolean logic, like navigating Airbnb or a hotel website will become much easier, because you can really filter the results very finely if you know how Boolean logic works. So that is basically what we'll be diving into in the coming weeks. So definitely sign up for that. For now, I want to thank you all for all the questions before the session started. As the session was going on, I saw also many people helping each other out in the chat. That is great. I love to see that. So definitely connect with each other and post your Discord username or your forum username in the chat if you want. And then I will be closing it in just a little bit. For now, thank you. Have a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Keep sending me those questions and we'll see each other soon. Bye-bye.